Welcome to Shortcuts to Mastery. I'm your host, Maria Henning, and in my universe, life is for growth and time is for bending. So hop in, my friend, buckle up, and let's get into it. Hello, welcome back to the Shortcuts to Mastery podcast. How are you? How's it going? This is a super fun episode. I got to interview Rachel Lieberman from Pure Generators about her new book, A Modern Guide to Human Design, as well as some other really fun topics that we got into as the conversation evolved. And it was so much fun. I've been following Rachel for years. We kind of both laugh about that in the podcast, but we haven't really gotten to chat. And so this was such a fun connection point, and we got into some really cool topics, in my opinion. And I actually wasn't planning, as you'll hear me say in the episode, on ever having guests on this podcast. I initially the idea of it was just for it to be a solo episode, but a few months ago I saw Rachel posting about her new book and just saying she'd love to talk about it on podcasts, and I was like, fuck yeah, actually that sounds like so much fun. Why didn't I think about doing interviews before? So this is cool because this is the first interview I think of many, and it's cool as a generator to have had that idea come to me as something outside of me to respond to. So really fun first interview on the podcast. And speaking of first interview, I just completely forgot to record this episode from my closet, aka my recording studio. So you'll hear some like kitchen sounds in the background and things like that, but it'll feel like you're kind of hanging out with us, in a little virtual cozy space, or at least let's say that was my intention. And if you're coming from Rachel's audience, by the way, hi, my name is Maria. It's great to meet you. I'm a human design and Gene Keys teacher. It's super awesome to have you here. And I hope that whether you're coming from my audience, Rachel's audience, or beyond, that you enjoy this conversation no matter where you're coming from. I think it was a really good one. I got to ask Rachel some fun questions. Like I was saying, she's such a resource. She's so much fun. She knows so much, and I really enjoyed it. So I hope you do too. It was a great time. Enjoy the episode, and I'll see you at the end. Yay, amazing. We're recording. How's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm a little under the weather post an intense month-long launch and promo experience, but today I'm feeling good, so I'm excited for our chat. And welcome to the Shortcuts to Mastery podcast. You're actually my first podcast guest. So I wasn't planning on having guests on the podcast, but when you posted about your book and that opportunity, I was like, actually, yes, absolutely, I'd love to have you on. So speaking of all of that, I'd love for you, for my audience that might not know you, to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about your book, this project, which I have some questions about, but tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, I am Rachel Lieberman. I run a platform called Pure Generators, where I talk about human design and mostly focus on the generator MG experience. But I did recently release a book called A Modern Guide to Human Design that covers everything in human design, not just generators and MGs. So it's been really fun to create something that everybody can enjoy. And yeah, I guess my goal with the book was there hadn't been new human design books out in the market for quite a while. Now this year we have a wave of new ones from just sort of the new generation, which is really cool to see. So obviously other people were also thinking similarly. And I just wanted to create something that would be good for both someone who is brand new to human design or maybe someone who already knew a little bit about it, but it's always so helpful to have something to reread, to look at again, to reference, because we don't really learn and integrate all of this stuff at once, in one day. And I just wanted it to be really practical and easy to read and easy to understand, and also just visually interesting and fun, because that's really important to me. So yeah, that's the book.
And I think you crushed it, because I have really been enjoying reading this book, and there's a couple things that you said that I have really just I've tuned into. Number one, visually, I'm just obsessed with the visuals, and there's these colors in the what is that called?
Yeah,
the
the
crease
spine.
Or whatever.
Isn't that cool?
Yes, it looks like there's light coming out of it. I was so just taken aback by that as I was reading it. And then I think it's as you're saying, we don't often integrate this stuff. And I have, some questions for you about this systems and human design and all of that, but we don't integrate it all at once. And like for me, I've just gotten way more into the gene keys over the years, and I haven't really like deepened my human design study, and I don't talk about it as often. So as I'm like gearing up to teach a whole gene keys course that includes human design in it, it's helpful to have like a different perspective and a really grounded and practical perspective like yours to reference amongst, the source stuff that I have and like other human design teachers. So it just, for me, I just selfishly came at a great time and I've been really enjoying reading it, and it's super clear. I also took it to I went to Vermont this weekend with some friends, and they were both like perusing the book and like really enjoying it. So
Cool.
some, newcomers to human design, like, really enjoying it. They've heard of it. I talk about it all the time, as we do, that are in this world. This is the lens that we view the world through, but they haven't, studied it as I have or whatever, and they were really appreciating it. I have my main question for you about this is, so really quick, you're a 1-3 sacral generator, correct?
Yeah.
What's your big three in astrology, out of curiosity?
I am a Virgo sun, Virgo moon, and Scorpio rising.
Fun. Love that.
Yeah.
I'm not an astrologer, but it's fun to hear people's big three. My main question for you, I'm just super impressed by this like 1-3 aspect with this book. And the reason I say that is because I think this is a perfect like production of your 1-3. I could also tune into some gene key reasons for that as well. But I would love for you to talk about the experience of writing this as a 1-3 with this lens of like, most of my 1 and 3 clients really have like they really struggle like putting things out there. Mm-hmm. The ones being like, I never know enough. Like with my 1 clients, we joke that it's like they wish they could just download their brain into like someone else's brain, and if they've never given every nuance and every thought they've had and every dot they've connected, it's like not enough. So I find that to be really a challenge with my 1 clients and friends. And then the 3s are always afraid to try something new, to experiment, to screw it up or whatever. And I feel like you did a great job of like using the gifts and the power of the 1-3. So how was this process for you as a 1-3? Did you deal with some of those things, or have you dealt with them in the past?
Yeah, it's definitely been one of the biggest challenges of just like having a business. I think that 1-3s, because I'm a 1-3, I attract a lot of 1-3s like to my work, and so I get a lot of feedback from them. So that has helped me understand it better over the years too. But we're more like artists or creators, sort of more that archetype than anything else, because it's going to vary person by person depending on what else you have going on in your chart, or just, how you're raised or the culture you're living in. But as time has gone on in my deconditioning process, I'm becoming like more sort of antisocial. Like there's nothing in my role as that 1-3 that's really about things coming to me through people. Like that is kind of the special thing about that profile. So it's not that I don't love sharing things with people. I do, but it's such an inward process, because it's like the 1 is very like introspective, like you're going deep into things, like you really need to be like sort of within yourself to do that. And then the 3, you're kind of going out in the world and you're just seeing how it works. But at the end of the day, you're kind of coming back and being like, okay, so what did I learn? And yeah, there's a lot of like inner turmoil that happens with that, I would say. It's not so much about what's going on in the outer world. So a lot of 1-3s, I think, have a hard time figuring out like, how do I make money, or how do I put out something that's not their traditional like teaching 1-3s are actually also great teachers, but maybe like coaching somebody, or like something with a ton of like people oriented activities. So yeah, for me, I think the book was really an extension of the things that I've found are the most satisfying for me, which is like creating a guide to something, or writing a blog, or creating visuals. Like those have been all the things that I've done over the past 5 years that have been the most satisfying. And I think definitely part of me felt like there's no way to only do that and be successful, or there's no way to like do this in a bigger way. But I do think that I had this idea of wanting to do a book for quite a while. I just had to let it kind of like unfold in the way that felt right. But yeah, it was definitely, there's always that. I guess the other thing is, I really wanted to do this with a publisher, because as a 1-3, I feel that I don't have a great gauge of like what other people want. So I was like, why don't I allow a publisher to give me a concept that they think would be successful and what people want, and then I can just create that. So that's basically how it unfolded. And it's just definitely something I could not have done on my own.
I find that to be fascinating. And I also, for those of you that are listening, if you don't binge Rachel's podcast, I spent all of Monday binging it. And I heard your episode about how you got this book deal in alignment with your design. And you spoke about like that piece of you wanted a publisher to help you to kind of get, get a sense of what the people would want. I think that's fascinating. So if you haven't listened to that episode, go listen to, I'll link it in the show notes. But yeah, I appreciate you sharing all of that. And I think that your business, I've followed you for a long time, but we haven't really
Yeah, likewise.
necessarily we haven't necessarily crossed paths too much, but I've always been obsessed with like your visuals, and then looking at this book, and then also like listening to your podcast recently and hearing everything that you're up to. I feel like you're doing the one line creator archetype justice. That's the like life's work line in the Gene Keys. Like I find that you're doing things in business very creatively, right? And then looking at like the work that I've always been obsessed with your visuals, like I was saying, and I think I've have seen your Oracle deck from like many years ago or whatever, and I was always impressed with your design. And I just am super excited because like I was saying, I normally find 1s and 3s that are really struggling with like the shadowier aspects of those archetypes, and I find that you're like really exemplifying like the gift aspect of it. So I can't wait to be like, here's an example. Like I only have one line in my chart. It's my unconscious 1.1 Mercury, so it's not an archetype I can like super speak to. I'm like, I don't know, I'm just a 2. Like it just comes easy. I'm sorry if this is annoying, but it's just cool to see what you're up to. How was, like, speaking of the 1s, how was like the research process for putting together a book like this? Did you find that there was a lot of like, I don't know, stuff that you wanted to fill in the gaps of, or were you like, I don't know, I feel really resourced, I've been doing this for X number of years, and like I feel ready to like put this out there?
Yeah, I feel like in my last answer, I did also gloss over the fact that like leading up to like the past year or two, I would say like becoming confident in creative expression has been like my biggest like demon and like life journey. Like it has been very difficult, and to the point where I feel like I purposefully chose like a career path previously that was like zero creativity, even though that is like the heart of who I am. So yeah, it's definitely been a difficult journey. And yeah, as far as the writing of this, there were a lot of things that I had already covered, but I think just being that first line, like I had never really talked about like variable before in any of my work. I was like deep in the raw uruhu materials just to like make sure I got everything right. I will say like I had an extreme fear like when this came out of like there's gonna be a mistake in there somewhere, and I still have that fear. No one has come to me with that yet, but like I almost couldn't enjoy it when the physical book arrived because I was like, oh God, I'm going to look through this and find this mistake. And I finally had to sit myself down and look at the parts where I was feeling the least confident and just like verify, okay, there is no mistake here. Despite like this going through many rounds of editing, but I was the only human design person with my eyes on it. So no one else could really like catch that type of mistake. But so far, there's no mistake but maybe there is, and I just need to be okay with that. I'm a third line. There are mistakes. So that was definitely something I had to get over.
No, that makes sense. I'm like double Virgo, right? Like, oh my God, the mistake aspect of it. I have 6 like Capricorn planets, and like what you're doing in a book is what I'm attempting to do with the Gene Keys course. And it's like, how do I like get everything in there and like make sure there's no mistake or like perfect. So I totally get that. It's fascinating to hear you say that like getting into the creative thing was like very difficult, and you chose a career that like wasn't creative. And I often find, like, I've heard myself say a lot over the years, like, I hate like film and TV, but secretly I'm like, I'm so interested in that. Like, wait, I would almost like want to be a part of that world. And I find that we do this a lot to ourselves. Maybe it's like a protection mechanism. I mean, we could get into like core wound of human design, which I think you're also doing great in 53.6. I'm assuming that's your chart in the book. Yeah. On the 21st page. Yeah. So 53, beginnings, line 6, like, bird's eye view perspective, like putting all this together. But I'm curious if you could, I'm harping harping on this one thing, but truly, like, I really have not found good examples to send my ones through. But what for you, I don't know if you could describe like the journey of like the struggle of the creative process and like being a deeply creative person, and like what were some of the things that allowed you to own it, and what does it feel like now, like really owning that? Are there still, hiccups along the way? I'd love to hear, your perspective on that.
Yeah, it was very gradual. Like, I think it was around 2015 that I started to realize, okay, I was kind of in the middle of like a spiritual awakening, what you might call it. And I was just doing a lot of thinking about like, what do I want out of my life? Like, do I actually enjoy the things I'm doing? Like, what's the point of all of this? And for whatever reason, well, also I realized I'd become a very boring person with like no hobbies, no passions, just like nothing outside of, I don't know, like I think I was seeking that in like relationships, like love relationships. I was really like looking for someone else to give me that type of purpose, which like that has been a lifelong struggle for me. But I just had some experiences where I was like, I found myself just very alone, which I think is exactly what I needed. And I had this job as a project manager, which was like mildly satisfying. It wasn't the worst thing ever. And I was like, I think I just need to make something. So I literally would just go home and like cut up paper, and I made some art for my apartment. And then I was like, I'll do some painting. And then I remember I was painting with these really bright sort of paint colors. It's not that different from what I do now. And I went and got like sherbet ice cream in the exact same color. And I was like, okay, like this is what we're doing on the weekends. I didn't know it at the time, but I think I was honoring my sacral essentially, but I didn't know about human design back then. And then that just kind of snowballed, and I ended up making my Oracle deck, which I've had since 2016. I guess it was the very end of 2016. And I just got this idea, like, I need to do this because I was really into tarot and oracles. And I just took a week off, like, very last minute. Like, on Thursday, I was like, I'm taking next week off. And I was like, well, I'm just going to sit in my apartment and try to make this. And I didn't make all of it. I made a little bit. But, yeah, it was very gradual. It was just kind of taking that, I guess, intentional time to just be like, it was like to be a child, kind of, to go back to that feeling of just making things with no expectation. For me, a lot of it was visual, but it could be, for other people, different things. Could be writing, could be dance, could be whatever. And over time, it just became more comfortable. And I would say now, I reflect on this sometimes, like, now that's just like my state all the time. It's just kind of like a non-negotiable state. It's just become very normal. I don't really know another way to be. But over the years, I have hit those knots of like, oh yeah, I feel kind of cringe about like putting this out there. And now I don't feel that so much. But I just try not to really think about like where, like, how people receive things that I do, because that's just not really for me to know. So just like as a 1-3, it's just like you create it, you put it out there, you kind of learn some things, and you're like back to the drawing board. And that's really the point of it.
Yeah, no, that's so cool. And it does sound childlike and playful and explorative, and just like, getting the colors together. And I look at your work and I'm like, it's so colorful. It's so pleasing to look at it. To my sacral, it's very satisfying. And it's also very practical and clear and informative. So yeah, I'm sure if you looked, like, I'm sure you've done the work already to look back and be like, oh, I was doing similar things as a child, or at least connecting. Yeah. Connecting to my inner child. Yeah, no, that's so cool. And as I often say, and it's funny because I attract people that use the word cringe in this way. It's like being cringe will set you free. It's like, would you rather be cringe or would you rather have a satisfying business? It's like, I remember the first time I like discovered this, I was talking with my cousin, and she's maybe like 8 years younger than me or something like that. And she was like just such a talented dancer, but in like a TikTok Gen Z way. And like her cousin, who's not related to me, had like a very like successful TikTok thing. And my cousin was like really wanting to do that. And I was like, Gato, you have to be willing to be cringe. You have to just do it, And I have said that now for years. So it's fun to hear you use that same word, because I think it's such a, like, when we can own it, it's like really like a freedom, a key to freedom, in my opinion. Yeah. So cool. I'm curious, I'm sure you've spoken about this in other places, but I like I heard you chat about, you came into the human design scene, you started to kind of like learn this stuff, and you found a gap in the generator market. And what is that gap for you? Like, what did you see that was like, yeah, not there? Because I mean, I think like I probably found you like right at the beginning of my human design journey, like 3 or 4 years ago. Like I remember finding your account and being like, oh, she knows what's up. Like you just seem so established. And I was like, that makes sense. There should be like someone for generators. At that time though, what was the gap that you were seeking to fill?
Yeah, I mean, the way that all of this started was kind of similar to the creative process that I just described, which was like I had left that job and I had no idea what I was going to do next. I was also extremely fearful about like money and survival. But I was like, I have a couple months. I can just kind of I was like, I'm burnt out. I'm not doing well. I need to just do some things that are fun and satisfying. And so then I found human design. A few weeks later, I was like, this is classic one line. I was like, I can't really speak to anything else but my own experience. So like even at first, I just started talking about generators, not even manifesting generators. I was like, I can talk about generators because even though I'm new to human design, I can look back at my life and understand a lot of these concepts and how they were applied in my life. So I can really speak to like years of experience despite only really having that knowledge for a short time. And I guess, yeah, I was surprised that there weren't more people. Number one, there just didn't seem to be very many generators and manifesting generators in the human design world that were very visible. And it was a lot
Yeah.
smaller back then, too. It was a lot of projectors, which makes total sense.
Yeah.
And
I
I
still
was,
see so many projectors when I look at like the really well-known people. I'm like, it's a lot of projectors, which again makes a lot of sense that they're doing great work.
I agree. It is definitely mostly projectors. And they're the ones who are naturally tend to be a bit more visible or focused on that or whatever. It makes a lot of sense. But yeah,
Yeah.
I would say it wasn't really like a strategic move. It was more just like I can really only speak to my own experience. That's all I have to offer. And it was just yeah, I had a blog before when I was in my early 20s, like a style blog, which I believed was
Mm,
cringe and didn't want anybody in my real life to know about. And stopping
right.
that, I think, was correct for me because that's not really like, I mean, I'm like a Libra South node, Aries North node. So like Libra,
Mm,
like that would be my South node to be kind of paying attention to this aesthetic stuff. That's not really
yeah.
my journey in this lifetime. But that concept of a blog really had stuck with me. And I was like, this is very
Mm,
satisfying. So it was just funny
mm-hmm.
these things that we figure out like a lot earlier actually are pretty true and satisfying. So yeah, I just kind of started putting stuff out there truly just from my own experience because I felt like couldn't really talk about anything else. And yeah, it just really, I'm talking about the exact same stuff as I did from day one. Like it's deeper, it's more nuanced, but it truly is like the
Yeah.
exact same topics. And it's really fun.
I mean, it sounds fun, and I have, my own like spiritual business, and it's the most fun thing in the world. So I definitely agree, and seeing your stuff, I can tell you're enjoying what it is that you're doing. I think that's just such an interesting story because it's like it's not strategic. It was like just you speaking from your own experience as a 1-3, generator, and like what felt exciting to you at the time, and I've been thinking a lot about this concept of like body of work and like deepening your body of work the more you engage with a topic. And so hearing you say at the end, like I'm still speaking about the same stuff, but now it's deeper and more nuanced. It's like that's so valuable, to people. I often find, I will say this, I often find that the 3 experience is the most valuable in terms of like just trying things out and like putting them to test. I mean, it might just be me as like a 3-line vocation, and like I just find that type of knowledge very valuable. I find a lot of people, clients, friends, whatever, just often be like, oh, but I need a certification. Oh, but I need this. And it's like, do you get that like your experience that you've already lived and you think you need a certification to validate that? Like, but that experience is like actually the valuable thing. Like that's what people are wanting. Like when they're trying to get a certification is like your lived experience. So yeah, just talking about your lived experience and then deepening that further is super valuable for people. So yeah, and I love that you're doing it as a generator. Just again, selfishly, I'm like, yay, I can like learn more about sacral topics. Speaking of that, I'm curious, what is your like description or distinction, how do you distinguish between the generator and the manifesting generator? Because there's, you know, in Ra's world, it's like manis or mani gens are like a subtype, and it's not really like a true other aura. So there's, and then other people say that there's 5 types. I'm not really interested in, I mean, yes, if you think there's 5 or 4, that's interesting too, but how would you, in your own language, from so much experience talking about the generator experience, how would you distinguish between those 2 types?
Yeah, within a couple of months of starting my blog, I realized I could talk about both. Not only because like my husband is a manifesting generator, so I have a clear like subject to observe every day to speak about, but also just because the heart of who we are as sacral beings is the same. Like we are all living off of that response, needing to put our energy into places that are satisfying for us every day. But I would say the difference is just kind of how that expresses, like the nuances of that. So generators tend to want to put our energy into like one bigger thing. And it's harder for us to split that between like wildly different aspects of our life. Typically, like if a generator can't find like a main vocation that is satisfying, it's going to be very hard to get that satisfaction out of something on the side because it's just hard for us. It's like we're the classic ones where like if things aren't going well at work, like we're just a mess, like we're complaining, you know, we're just feeling like really bad in all aspects of our life. Whereas manifesting generators, I find not only do they need to have like a lot of different things going on, but it's like my husband, he has a day job at the same company where I used to work, actually. He's an engineer. And he has the energy for that every day. Even if it's not like it's pretty satisfying for him. But he always has a million side projects. And so for him, it's actually more sustainable to stay at that job through sort of the ups and downs. Like even if that job were not 100% satisfying every day, that would be fine because he kind of has the energy to like, once that shift ends, it's like, oh, okay, I'm going over here. It's like straight to the basement, straight to the other engineering projects, the bike, the speakers, the whatever. Like he has a million things going on. So yeah, it's just kind of that little distinction in how many what I call energy outlets somebody needs. But also, I mean, sort of the classic human design language around this is like the reason that it's called a manifesting generator is because manifesting generators have a more direct link between like one of their motor centers where like they're getting powered and their throat where they're able to express that. So they're sort of like quicker to take action. But this can vary a lot between people based on like a lot of things in the chart that I probably can't even like recite at the moment. But the classic manifesting generator has this channel 3420 from the sacral to the throat. And it makes sense. It's like they get that response. It's like straight into action, straight into putting that out in the world. Whereas generators, we don't have that. So it's more like response, and then it has to kind of trickle its way up to the throat or make it there at the right moment. So we tend to be a little bit of like a slower mover in that way. That's usually how you can spot the MGs. And of course, like MGs are, because they're faster and can take that action more, it's like easier for them to kind of undo things. It's like you take the action, oh, pivot, we're going over here. Whereas for a generator, it's like you take that action, it's like I am stuck in this until I have finished it. But I would love to hear as an MG, like what's your experience on that? Like what's your take on it?
Yeah, I like how I'll share for sure, but I like the way that you came about that. It's like almost like where do we find, like I like your description of like energy outlets. I'm interested in that because often I just find people just speaking only about the mechanics. It's like, oh, well, it's like, you know, this channel and the blah, you know, and like you're really speaking to, you know, as we were talking before, like your lived experience, like a generator has this one type of energy outlet and that should be satisfying, and then a Manny Gen maybe would have these other ones, and it's like it's just so much more of like a like I don't know how to describe, just lived experience. I don't know another way of saying it, but I just find that to be super interesting. So thanks for your perspective. So I am a single definition and I have 3420 twice. So it's 34 is like both my north nodes, and then 20 is the south nodes. So I kind of laugh. I have a lot of like Capricorn friends around the time I was born. I was like, we're all just 3420, like,
Yeah.
you know, psychos, like going out into the world, which is so fun. But yeah, I mean, for me, like, one of the things that really is, I don't know if this is the right expression. I'm terrible at expressions, but I think this is the right expression. I think one of the things that like put the nail in the coffin for me, maybe sealed the deal for me, it's a better expression, about human design, was hearing about how many gens are these like multi-hyphenate, like multi-passionate people. And like that to me essentially like gave me the permission, or rather like validated and made me not crazy about looking back at my life and being like, oh my God, I like danced for 15 years, but I also like sang in the like choir, but I also always was into like science and like marine science, and I ended up studying marine science, but like taking a semester off school to like learn yoga and like what, you know, it's like that all in the, I think looking back, it's like without having the language of human design, it was like, I'm just crazy and I'm such a hot mess and I don't know what to choose, and like I'm jack of all trades but master of none, or whatever. And then seeing the like the multi-hyphenate, multi-passionate thing, I was like, oh no, like this is how I'm designed. But yeah, it's like if I feel into what you described of like, you know, I like can have kind of like a sustainability in one area and then like get my energy from like other sources or have these other energy outlets, like that feels true to me, except I do need to have a job that is like very, very satisfying, and I can like, that is actually like a huge priority for me. And if I'm not experiencing energy for the job in that moment, that's when I go to like other things. So for me, like I've quit so many jobs. Like when I look back, I love your story of like when you heard your sacral scream, like, no, I can't do this anymore. I've had that experience, and it was very similar. And it was like, I quit like right away. And I did that like 5 times before I like went into my business. 'Cause I think for me, maybe it's the astrology. It's like my moon in the 10th house or whatever. It's like my emotional landscape is like so connected to my career, and like just having like 10 total like Capricorn or 10th house placements. Like just like kind of aggressive. Like I do need to have the job satisfaction. But when I look back at like when I didn't have job satisfaction, that's when I had 3 jobs at the same time. You know, it was like I was doing like, you know, I was working for, say, like Apple retail, and that wasn't super satisfying. But I was doing an internship at an architecture firm, and I was teaching yoga on the side. And then like once I let go of that one of those jobs, and I would get a third one. It's like I always had multiple different, like work energy outlets. And then once it was just this one, which is, you know, in January it'll be 4 years of like being full time. So again, this is a Capricorn thing. I'm like January 2020, it's such an easy way to be like, it's been 4 years, you know, because January, just the math is so like simple. But yeah, it's like once I had this job, you know, I didn't find that I needed to be doing so many different things like outside of work. And I do a lot of things in work. And then when I'm in those, like I'm actually curious to also chat about this with you, because I've been thinking about the generator plateau versus like the manifestor cycle, and like many gens that have both. But I find there's a clear distinction between those two. But yeah, if I'm in like a manifestor rest cycle or like a generator plateau, that's when I do stuff outside. But like I do find that the work needs to be like, really, it needs to be very satisfying for me.
Definitely.
Thoughts on that?
Well, it's funny because you're actually someone who I always keep in mind, I think, as a really good example of a manifesting generator, because
so sweet.
Because a lot of the manifesting generators that I work with, and I'm still trying to, not being one myself and not having experienced this, I'm still trying to figure out exactly like just how to get to the bottom of that issue of people feeling like, oh, I can't stick with any one thing. I'll never have a successful business. I'll never, whatever. And I don't think that's true of manifesting generators at all. You just have to find that space within your business of doing enough different things. But the other thing I notice about you is like you travel a lot and you go off and have a lot of fun. And I'm just not sure that's something that a lot of generators would necessarily be capable of, because it's like that ability to kind of switch off work, go do that. It's like that's almost like an energy outlet in itself. I've noticed for me it's getting worse, that over time, like even I'll be like, oh, cool, I got an invite to go to the beach for 3 days. Yes, I'm going to do this. But then I also know like, oh God, I'm going to be so discombobulated. Like I'm not going to be back to my good like work flow for at least a week after that. And so I still do it, but it's like, oh, this generator energy, why can't I just like pivot between different things? So yeah, it's cool. Like, I don't know. It's cool to see you, like, you do your work stuff and you go off and do that. And it's cool.
Thank you for that reflection. Yeah, I appreciate that. I've been, especially like now, because I just got back from Vermont, and then on Saturday I go to Vegas to see the When We Were Young festival, which is like Blink 182 and Green Day and like all my favorite bands, and I just cannot wait. But I do travel so much more than most, and like whenever I have friends that like are willing to take those like spontaneous trips with me, they always are manifestors or manifesting generators. Like I'm like I out of sheer luck convinced my generator friend last night to go to Vegas with me, because a friend who was supposed to go just can't go anymore, and so we have like a free VIP fucking bracelet, and I was like, bitch, do you want to come to Vegas with me? And like, I've traveled with her before, and she's the person that like months in advance is like, we need to book our flights and like we need to book our tickets, and I'm like, I'm like, I will only know until the moment. And I think it's a 20 thing as well, but like truly, like I don't plan flights or stays until like maybe a few days before the trip, if even that. Like, out of sheer luck that I invited my friend and she was able to come last night, did I book the hotel, because I still had not like booked a hotel. So yeah, that's an interesting reflection. I think it's also too like it's probably like a Sag North Node thing, just like going off and traveling. It is something that I'm a little concerned about, given that I'll be in 2 months, when less than 2 months, what the fuck, anyway, my lease ends, and I'll be going off and doing some like long-term traveling. Like, I'm hoping to do like a little bit of a base over in Bali for a bit, just because I know it well and I want to have a little bit of a base, because I also like a routine and whatever.
Yeah.
But anyway, I appreciate that, seeing that as like energy outlets, and like, just a reflection of like, I am able to like switch quickly between tasks. Yeah.
Because a lot of times
Yeah.
I feel like manifesting generators, it's really important for at least some of their energy outlets to just be like purely fun. Like, as soon as something feels like work, it's like, nope, not interested in that. It's like my husband, I'm always like, you have all of these things you could monetize. Like, he builds carbon bikes, and for a while it was in such high demand. He had like wait lists. People were giving him, $10,000 down payment, and he just, one day he was just like, nope. Like, that it was taking all the fun out of it. And that's so fascinating to me, because I'm like, as a generator, that would have been like my ticket out of the grind, like doing something I love. But for him, he was like, that was the absolute worst thing that could have happened. It ruined all the fun. It was terrible. But I have a question for you, actually. What do you think has allowed you to stay satisfied and energized in your business while staying with like the same themes? Because you're not like jumping all over the place. Like, you're talking about, just like everything you do feels cohesive to me. So I'm curious, just like how you've been able to keep that satisfying.
Yeah, no, thanks for asking me questions on my own podcast. It's so nice. No, it's a good question. I think one of the first parts of that answer is like a recent discovery over the last year of like how much fun I have. I think I've always known this, but like recently I discovered it, but how much fun I have with like the graphic design aspect. And like just putting things together. Like, I love visuals, and so like your brand is so satisfying to me, because you're so talented in that like design aspect. But I find that whenever there is like a new, response or a new idea or something like that, the graphic design aspect of it is like extremely energizing. And so that then is like the next question, or the next like part of that answer is like what I'm trying to like put together. This is me like a little under the weather, but it's like it feels like I'm doing a lot of different things, but it does feel cohesive, like what you're saying. It feels like I'm working under the umbrella of like human design and Gene Keys, and then I just get to create like little mini courses or mini projects like underneath that. And then like the graphic, like for me, putting the brand together for that is like the kickoff, like to going and really deep diving on like a certain subject. But yeah, how else have I been able to keep this satisfying? I will say I do let myself melt into the couch when there is no energy there. Like, really, like last year was definitely a year like that. Looking back, I'm like, was that like a Saturn return like situation? Because that last, like in February is when my Saturn went exact. And so I was really dealing with a lot of those like Saturn first house return themes last year, like just a lot of like dealing with body image stuff. My skin was crazy, and I let myself rest. Like, I didn't have any energy to do this stuff. But then going back into it, I just find that with human design and gene keys, like there's just so much to get into, and there's so many, I don't know, ideas and things to do. And there's so many formats, right? It could be a course, it could be one-on-one, it could be readings, it could be a mastermind. I actually find that you have really interesting, going back to that creator archetype, like very interesting containers and like ways to, like things that you're offering. I feel very basic in my like course and coach, like course creator, like type of offerings. But I find that there's a lot for me to do. Yeah, I find there's a lot for me to do in this space. And I think this is the last thing I'll say. Going back to the thing we were saying before about like deepening your body of work and having like more subtlety to it. Like that, like the deeper you go into something, the more there is to like talk about it. And so the more, I don't know, the more urges or ideas or whatever come through to chat about. Like with the gene keys, like human design and gene keys are both just insanely in-depth rabbit holes, and then to add astrology onto that, it's like the deeper you go into that, the more topics there are to share. So yeah, I find that for me, the creative aspect of it is extremely satisfying. And then like there's so many things to dive into, and so I can let myself do a lot of different things. And when I found the most satisfying times in my business, it's when I'm doing multiple things at once. So it's like for this past month, like I launched this whole Gene Keys like reader training and the podcast and like a free training to like lead into that like big certification style course all at the same time. And like I've heard, other manifesting generators say 3 projects at a time is like a happy zone, and I do find that to be the case for me. And then I just don't do anything for a little bit, and then I'm like 3 things at once. So yeah, that seems to be my pattern.
No, that makes sense. Do you have an undefined heart?
I do.
Yeah. Because I was going to say, both of us were like 2 like very undefined hearts talking. So I'm like, I actually find your things very interesting. Like we're both just like, I don't know the value of my thing. Because I thought it was interesting. Like you taught people like how to do readings or like how to structure a readings business. I think that's really interesting. I think like your cosmic compendium, like that's really interesting. Almost more of like a tech thing. Like, I think there's like a lot of, and then this more, I guess, like traditional or whatever coaching stuff, but I think those are really creative ideas and like not something that you see out there that much. And maybe that's where you're able to keep that like excitement. But a lot of the MGs that I work with, they'll be like, I'm never going to be able to commit to something. Like I'm interested in this. I'm like, no, I think you're just, you're not at the place where you're ready to commit to one. You haven't found the umbrella essentially that you're willing to stay with for a long time. Because I do think MGs absolutely can. Or that umbrella can just be you, like your identity a lot. I do find that most MGs, it's better just like make your brand name your name. That way you like pure generators, that wouldn't be like necessarily a thing for an MG because you'd feel like, well, that's what I have to talk about. But I think for a generator, that's fine. So just giving yourself that space. And you're right. It's like you come back to things over and over, and that it doesn't mean you have to like abandon it the second you get like tired of it. You can just like do something else for a while and then come back.
Yeah, no, truly. And it's funny that you say, like, you're talking about like my readings on repeat course and then the compendium. And I like literally forget that those things exist. Like truly, like I like forget about them all the time. And I'm like, holy shit, I like have an app. Like I should like work on that and like tell people about it or whatever. Like I fully just forget. And I just like get into like the 3 projects that I'm into like at the same time. And then people are like, can I get the compendium? And I'm like, oh, the link's not in the bio. Weird. I totally forgot about that. Like let me like put it back on. Yeah, but like talking about the undefined heart thing, one of the things that I found super helpful for this launch was and then for this course, because I'm creating it as I go, is I'm not giving anyone a date. I was like, the podcast is coming this weekend, or like the whatever's coming this weekend, or whatever this week. And it's like, I don't like give myself those like hard promises to keep, because I have done that in the past. And like the compendium took me 20 months. I thought it was going to take me like 6. And so you can imagine all the broken promises that were like made along the way. I've been meaning to record a whole episode on it. It's been on my list of ideas for a while, but it's like, that was really hard, but like, again, I love seeing your work as a 3. It's like you have to learn from those experiences, and like learning from that and then approaching this launch, I was like, oh yeah, like this is one thing that I've learned that really like doesn't feel good. Why don't I try it like a different way? But yeah, it's a good, thank you for the reflections. It's funny because like you're asking how to keep things satisfying and like not jump around from different things. And I have had Manny Gen clients just have way too many things at once and also struggle to kind of find that aspect. But I also have like manifestors talk about this too. And I always am fascinated by like one of my close friends in this industry, Katie Irvin, who is a manifester, and she just has one product, you know, and I found her to be like a very interesting case study. And so I just mentioned that just to those listening. It's like there's always a way to like work with your type. I think there was something you said, I don't know, I've been binging all your stuff recently, but you said something somewhere, probably in this book, about like you can do anything you want, it just needs to be like in alignment with your aura,
like,
you know,
how
and, like,
you
your
do
aura
it.
type.
And
like the how.
It's not what you do. Everybody can do anything. Like I see sometimes, like I get notifications for like common human design, like Google searches for SEO or whatever, and one of the ones this week was like generator careers, and I'm like, okay, no like we can't be thinking that way. Like anybody can do anything, right. It's just how you do it.
No, it's so true. Do you get a lot of clients asking you that, like, what am I supposed to, like, the what, like, what am I supposed to do?
Yeah, I think what people don't like to hear, because it's not satisfying to the mind, is that a lot of this stuff just has to be lived out. Like there is no, like you can't, you can look at your chart and learn certain things, maybe certain like overarching themes. That's why I also work with like North Nodes and numerology life path. Like I think those are really helpful systems because they kind of give you a little bit more of a clear picture of maybe like your soul's purpose or whatever. But how that actually plays out in like this moment in time is just so, like, it just has to be lived. You may end up doing something that no one's ever done before. So you can't, like, I can't just look at your chart and be like, this is what your purpose is. And so, it doesn't feel good. It's like I said, 2015, I start like, well, let's be creative. Let's figure out, like, I had a plan the whole time. I was like, I'm going to leave this job. Well, how long did that take me? 5 years. Yeah, that's how long it took. So, like, I would have been very angry had I known that when I began the journey, but the journey was so fun, it didn't even matter. Like that was the whole, like each stage was like an uncovering of more clarity around like what was satisfying, what felt good. And it just didn't matter like the time that took in the end. So when you kind of get your mind in that place of like, okay, well, this is just an exploration. Like maybe I am interested in these 10 things right now. And you can't necessarily make yourself sit down and just choose 2. Like you got to just kind of live it through, and like 7 or 8 will drop away. And then you're left with the 2 and you're like, oh, okay, great. Now I know exactly like what I want to put out there or whatever. So you just have to live it. Can't
really
logic
do.
it.
Yeah, I love that. You gotta live it, not logic it. That's a good tagline. No, it's true. It's true. And I ask because I have a lot of clients asking that same question, or friends or whatever. Like I made that Selena Gomez meme of like looking into the distance of like me reading everyone's like charts at the party, because it often happens. I have a friend of mine that like pimps me out. She's like, Maria, read them for filth, and I'll read people's charts. It's just fun. It's a fun like party trick, but it's never, it doesn't ever say like what to do. And even the Gene Keys, which like has very clear, kind of answers of like, this is the frequency of your vocation and this is the role that you're going to play and whatever, like it's still not gonna be, and you should be a train conductor,
or
it's
like
not that
whatever specific.
It is.
Like it's so much more general, and that's good. Like because the world is always changing. Like if it were the case in 20 years, it would all be obsolete. like you're here to run a photocopy business. It's like,
yeah.
That barely exists anymore. So yeah,
literally.
We're in times of like extreme acceleration. Like that's just the reality. That has not been the case through all of like human civilization. I would say there were probably times where your grandfather did this and then your father did it and then you did it and not a lot had changed. But like now the stuff your grandfather did just doesn't even exist anymore in most cases. So literally it's so different. Yes. It's so fast right now.
And I have some questions about that because I know you have a unique perspective on that. But I just want to highlight one of the things that you said is like, you enjoyed the journey anyway. And I think that's like definitely a very like sacral, like, you know, experience too, is like really enjoying the journey, because it's like for me, going back to what you were saying about having like many gen clients, or like, I feel like I'm never gonna like know what it is. Like, I know that this isn't going to be my only business or like my only thing that I do, but I'm like deeply satisfied and like really enjoying this journey. And I know that at some point, like, I'm gonna do something else. And so if I know that, and then I'm gonna do however many things I'm gonna do, I'm not, and that I'm enjoying it now, I'm not concerned about like what those things are gonna be. Like, I know they're gonna come out of, like, this is also very like, you know, 53 energy. I have the right angle cross of penetration. So I have that. I always say penetration cross. That's not what I mean. But I have the 53 as my Cancer Earth, and it speaks about like those things coming out of like the next things come out of an expansion of the previous thing. And so if you're enjoying the journey, like, it doesn't matter like what the next thing is gonna, like, I'm so not concerned about it or how long I'm gonna be in the world of human design, because as you're saying, it's accelerating super fast. I think human design is going to be around for a long time, and at least in our lifetime, you know, but there are other things that I mean, like with AI, you know, right now it's like, I don't know, just like totally new careers are springing up, and other careers are maybe not going to be available. So yeah, I think the journey aspect of it is really important, like enjoying the journey.
Yeah. And I'll also say that is not like an easy thing to grasp right away. Like, it's truly something, it's just not how we're taught to think, and it's not how our minds, when left to their own devices, tend to think. So it's not easy to think that way at first, but if you can kind of like, I feel like it was like a series of like ego deaths in a way to think that way, because it's like, what, I just want it now, I know it, I'm aware of it, like I want it now. And oh god, the frustration that came from that, I still have that sometimes. And then it's like, oh wait, but like today is so beautiful and like I got to do this today, and all I need to worry about right now is this. But honestly, I think that's like people's biggest challenge with human design, is like, we think it is listening to your body, but it's mostly your mind, at least for generators and MGs, but I kind of think it's true for everybody. So yeah, a lot of it is just mastering those thoughts.
I agree. And it's funny that you say that, like, you know, we are trained to think in that way of like reaching for the destination or wanting it now. My yoga instructor that I always talk about, because he was like a mentor of mine for 10 years, so his voice is fully cemented in my brain. He always says, there's no there. Like, there's no there to get to. We're like, I want to get there. And he's like, it doesn't exist. Like, I don't, and I agree. I don't think that there's a there. And now it just feels kind of like what you were describing earlier, is like your creative self is just like how you live, and you couldn't imagine another way of being. You just are this like creative, visual, loving, you know, self. That's how I feel about this type of mindset of like, you know, not being focused on the future necessarily in terms of like how to get to that goal or whatever, but really focusing on, am I satisfied now? For me, self-expression is like a huge thing. Maybe that 1.1 unconscious Mercury, like I was saying earlier, but it's like, do I feel self-expressed? Do I feel energized as a generator? And then, you know, just literally just look at your signature, right? And it's like, do you feel insert the blank today? And I just can't imagine not living that way. Now it feels so much more freeing versus what you were saying before, with that other type of mindset of like trying to get to a there just feels really frustrating or like really disappointing or kind of intense.
Yeah, I mean, we're asked, it's like, what's your 5-year plan? It's like, I mean, I was never good at answering that question. I offended some people. I didn't know I was being offensive, but it's like, I remember I had an internship and they're like, well, what drew you to like medical data management? And I was just like, well, I just kind of ended up here. It was sort of random, but I'm willing to give it my all. And they're just like jaw on the floor. I was like, oh, that was not the answer, I guess.
It was not what you were looking for, clearly. Oh my gosh. No, that's, yeah. And it's like, I always think this too, like, I think maybe this is like also like a Manny Gen thing, or rather a sacral thing. It's like, we were never told all the possible jobs that could be out there. And so it's like anyone that's in any job just also kind of ended up there. Like, you can't tell me that like little kid at 2 years old was like, I want to be a financial controller. Like, what the fuck? Like, it's such a random job that doesn't like that nobody knows about. Like, we just know of like these archetypal, you know, fireman, policeman, doctor, lawyer, whatever. It's like, I feel like I don't know. I don't feel super passionate ever about like working with younger people, but like my main thing that I feel passionate about is like, here's a menu. I often do this as a generator. I'm curious if you do this too. Like I like menus of options and to see what to respond to. I feel like it would have been really helpful for me to know here's a menu of career options. I mean, whatever, I found my way here, so it's not a big deal. But as a quick aside, one of the things I do for myself to work is like I lay out my to-do list and I'm like, which one feels satisfying? Like which one feels energizing? And if none of them do, like, is there another one I could do? Or should I just like rest? Is that something, have you found that menu concept to be useful?
Definitely. Menus, templates, all sorts of things. Like, it's funny you said the to-do list thing because I was basically just like raw dogging life this entire year. I had like no organizational system. I had like no plans. It was fine until it wasn't. And then I was like, let's think, well, until it was like, well, I need to promote this book. I have to answer to people. There's some things that need to happen. I can't just be like feral in my whatever. So I was like, let's start thinking like 2 weeks ahead. Let's do that. So then I got a new planner and then I was just like, I love writing in my planner. This is so satisfying. But like you're saying, what I really needed to do, and now I'm doing this, is making like, here's the things I could do this week. Like, here are the ones that really need to happen. Here are the ones that like, I could do. Whereas at first I was kind of like writing them down each day. Like, today I'm going to do this. And I started to like give myself extreme stress. Like, I became very unhappy and I couldn't quite pinpoint what it was because I was never finishing the things because I was probably doing something else or whatever. And yeah, now it's like I sit and I'm just like, okay, that. And then I do it. And then it's like back to the list, respond. Okay, that. And now I feel just like much better. But yeah, it was like, really, really not going well.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I've definitely been there too. I think, I don't know, is that also like an undefined heart thing and with a sacral? But
I don't. No willpower. Can't. Nope. Don't have it.
Yeah. Same. I really don't succeed with like, you have to get these 3 things done today. I mean, sometimes I will say like with a defined route, like I find that like a deadline, not a deadline, but it's like if I have like no time to do it and it has to get done, like maybe I'll like succeed. Like I do enjoy a little bit of that like insane like route pressure.
Same. Yeah. Like if it has to be done, I will do it. But if it doesn't have to be done and maybe like it would be nice to be done, it's no, probably not.
Right. Like I find that, yeah, if it doesn't have to be done, that root power doesn't like really ever kick in, or at least not in the way that I'm used to it kicking in, which is like, like do it. But like for the day to day, if I'm trying to make my life satisfying, I've really found this like menu concept to be super helpful. And here's what could get done this week, you know, and like, all right, great. Like I can pick and choose from here, here, and here. So yeah, I that's cool to hear your experience about it. I just wanted to, since we're, you know, coming up on the hour, I wanted to touch or circle back. I'm horrific at expressions. I think it's like moving to the US at like a certain age. I just like don't know like Venezuelan expressions or like American expressions. But anyway, circling back, you know, you're talking about how we're, you know, accelerating really fast right now. And in the beginning of your book, you talk about the age of Aquarius and like how human design coming in at this time is like really, like, what's the word? It makes sense. And your podcast is called New Paradigm Human. And your first episode, you talk about this idea and that you get these downloads. And so I'm just curious if you have anything that you're like really feeling into that right now about this like acceleration, this age of Aquarius, like what's alive for you right now with that contemplation?
Yeah, it's funny because at least in the past year, those downloads have like slowed a bit for me, which is really interesting. And partially that could just be like what I've been focused on in my life. But I do think that we crossed a certain threshold in a lot of that. Like we're still in this time of like really extreme acceleration. Like in human design, they say it's like leading up to 2027 when a lot of like things will like DNA will change and the children will be born with more like energy centers or whatever, and all of that is possible. But I think like the COVID years were really, really extreme, where people were thinking really differently about a lot of things, and it was just a way that people had not been forced to think in a really long time. And I think because we made it through that and started to think differently, it's a little more gentle right now. But yeah, basically just we're in a time of like questioning all of the structures, the hierarchies, the expectations that we've had before of how things should be. And as we come into, I mean, really, the transition between the different ages, it happens gradually. So there's not like 1 year where we can pinpoint like in 2100, like we're in the age of Aquarius. It's not going to be exactly like that. I get a little sad that I won't be alive to like be in the age of Aquarius. Like I get bummed, but I'm like, okay, well, part of the point of being here right now is to be part of the transition.
Right.
But yeah, I think everyone made it through that time of questioning a lot of things like school, work, how we spend our time, how we organize our communities, how we connect with people. And now we're kind of like, we're in a bit of a rhythm. So we'll have to see just what happens through like the next decade, and if all the children grow new centers in their hands or whatever in 2027.
Right. That is the 2027 prophecy is not something I dove super deep into other than having that kind of like basic knowledge. And I think it's really interesting. But yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think it's interesting. And I do, interesting is such a glossy overword, but I think it feels resonant in my bones. And when I think back to those COVID years, I mean, first of all, what a time to be a human design person online during that time. Yeah. Really like I'm so grateful for that timing, because like, whoa, that was very helpful. Yeah, that was very helpful. And I say this now to my students. It's like human design, and especially even gene keys, are like so fucking random. Like this is not like the market is not saturated, and even if it ever was actually saturated, it still really wouldn't be, because when it's us, it's never saturated because no one's doing it like you. But like really, really right now, it really, really isn't saturated. Like there's not enough people talking about this, but yeah, like thinking back to those COVID years, like it really did feel like such a big upheaval, of everything. And so, but yeah, it's funny to hear you talk about the specific dates, because I was just joking about how we thought the world was going to end in like 2012 and like with the Mayan calendar, and then we thought it was going to end in 2000 and like whatever, there's like, I come from a very Catholic family, and there's some kind of quite radical Catholics in my family that also speak to like, sort of world ending and some sort of time. And it's like, for me, when I look around at the chaos happening right now, I am aware that the world is ending, in the sense of like, because a new and better world is like coming. Like it's so chaotic right now for that reason. And I think it's cool that we both chose to like be on the earth during this like really kind of wild time.
Yeah, I agree. And I guess if anyone takes anything away from this, it's that there's a lot of people who are thinking like the world is ending. I don't want to have children because of climate change and all of these things. And I think there's another side of that story, which is that not only like statistically is it the best time to be alive in the world, which doesn't mean that everyone's having a great experience. That's never the case, because that's just not how the world is at this point. But statistically, it's the best time to be alive. And also a lot of these things, like these roads we're heading down with things like climate change, it's not that it's not real. It's just simply that we can choose to turn this stuff around if we get focused on it, if everybody gets the right awareness. Like I think we kind of saw an example of that with COVID, like how much the world could change if everybody just kind of started behaving in a different way. So I just have a lot of hope for where we're going. I think we're going in a great place. I think the Aquarian energy is going to take care of a lot of those issues that feel really like catastrophic and apocalyptic right now. And yeah, we're going into a new place and a new age.
Yes, no, 100%. And I don't know what your motivation is, but at least for me, as like an innocence motivation person, like I find to that perspective to feel so true for me, too. Like I do find there to be a lot to be hopeful about. And for me, it feels like certainty. Like it feels certain that we are like getting into like that this is the best time to be alive and that it will continue to get better, and like the Aquarian energy like is coming, or however way you want to describe that. Like for if Aquarian, age of Aquarius doesn't resonate with you, whoever's listening, like whatever way you want to describe that new kind of wave, because I do think it's a good time to be alive. So what an ending to end on. I love it. I'm so curious. You know, you came out with this fucking amazing book, A Modern Guide to Human Design, linked below in the show notes. What's next for you? Are you I know, thinking of like the generator train track coming to a stop. What's next for you? Are you still super focused on the book? Do you have any other cool things? Where can we follow you? Tell us all the things.
Yeah, I feel like as a generator, even though I'm almost at the 5-year mark in my business, I feel like I'm just getting started and figuring it out. So I'm putting out like I did these little glow up experiences for 3 months at a time this year that ended up being really awesome for generators and MGs, with like kind of like a little course or topic each month and a community, and like just very specific to just basically me responding to what people were wondering about. And that was really awesome. But I'm basically taking that and taking like all the work I've done over the past years, like all the soul type work, the human design info, the generator MG specific stuff, and I'm turning it into like a big space where you can access all of that. So like you said, I know not to do like due dates with my defined heart, so it will be coming sometime in the next few weeks. But that's what I've been working on. But yeah, it just feels like finally after 5 years there's a good solid base and like a culmination of a lot of things. So I'm really excited for everybody to be able to access that and just get support on their deconditioning journey. But yeah, you can find me at puregenerators.com, at puregenerators on pretty much like any platform. And yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Hell yeah. Thank you for coming on. I feel like I could talk to you for a lot longer about many more topics. But yeah, all of Rachel's stuff will be linked in the show notes for those of you listening. And yeah, if you're looking for an excellent modern guide to human design, you know, and a good textbook, and you love to read when you get your information, Rachel's an incredible writer, and this book is super fucking awesome. So highly recommend. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you.
Friends listening. Yeah, you're welcome. We'll chat with you later. All right, I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as we did. I had so much fun interviewing Rachel. We just, as you hear me say at the end, I feel like I could talk about a lot of things with her for a lot longer. We just had a great time, and it was awesome to chat with such a resource and such an expert in this field. And for me personally, it was great to ask a lot of selfish questions about one-line archetypes, the being 3, all that good stuff. So thanks for sticking around. And if you want a great book resource for human design, if you want to learn human design from a book, or you want to have a book reference, Rachel's A Modern Guide to Human Design is an absolutely fantastic book that I have the pleasure of owning and reading, and it's just incredible. So go check that out in the show notes below, and I will see you in the next episode. Talk to you later. All right, my friend, thanks for joining me on another ride aboard the Shortcuts to Mastery spaceship. You can get started on your human design and Gene Keys journey with me today for free by going to mariahenning.com/chart, which is linked below. If you're a visuals lover as well as an audiophile, then definitely join the party over on Instagram at @ByMariaHenning for lots of fun and beautiful educational content, and to tag me in the stories with the episodes you listen to so I can repost you. And of course, if you're here, you know it totally rocks for podcasts to receive great ratings, so if you're feeling warm and fuzzy and want to share, I'd be eternally grateful. I can't wait to connect again. Thanks for being here, and until next time, here's to everything going easier, better, and faster than expected.